What's going on, Bulls Nation? Welcome back to TheSlamDuncan YouTube channel. It's been a bit. I'm officially on summer break now, as I'm finally finished up this year of college, but that means that I have more time to do more of these videos, and it's going to be a ridiculous couple of weeks coming up for the Chicago Bulls, so I'm very excited about that. But before we get into this video, which is going to be about recapping some of the Bulls headlines, news, rumors of the past couple of days, mostly kind of stuff released on June 14th. Let's start off by saying this. Congratulations to the Golden State Warriors. Phenomenal season that they had. Phenomenal playoff run. Congratulations to Steph Curry. Finals MVP. Well-deserved. Game 4, man. That was phenomenal to watch. I have to say that this year's finals, I thought it was very entertaining. I really loved this year's finals. I love the matchup. And I think every single game was entertaining, in my opinion. I will say that the playoffs overall, I think, were pretty good. But the conference finals, man, those were absolute duds. That was a horrible conference finals for both series. I'm very upset about that. But good NBA finals. And man, that dynasty, man, for the Warriors, it's something special. So congratulations to them. But because we crowned a champion for the 21-22 season, it's time to talk about the 22-23 season, and that means the Chicago Bulls have to start getting going on some of their stuff, because obviously draft day is around the corner, and then right after that is free agency, and we get to see a lot of stuff happen. So before we get into this video, though, make sure you hit that like button. If you're new to the channel, hit that subscribe button. Let's get into this, Bulls Nation, because we got a lot to cover here. So obviously, now that the finals are over, draft day's coming up, so keep in mind about that. As the Bulls do have the 18th overall pick. We'll see if the Bulls keep it. It's just something to keep in mind. But main thing is this. Jake Fisher released a lot of information. Now, Jake Fisher is a well-known writer. I believe he works for Bleacher Report. But his sources, I do trust his sources. But I will say, just keep in mind, there are a lot of Twitter accounts that release a bunch of crap and fake stuff, namely NBA Central, who then, like, they say stuff and then it's, like, reported by Jake Fisher when Jake Fisher never said that. So if you want to actually know if it's real or not, go look at Jake Fisher's Twitter. But anyway, the main thing was this, that Zach LaVine is expected to re-sign with the Chicago Bulls. This is from Jake Fisher's sources. And this is, a surprise to a lot of people. It's not a surprise to me. I said since once the season was over for the Bulls that Zach's re-signing, or I thought he was re-signing, and people were, scared at the, end of season press conference. They're like, why didn't he commit to the Bulls? And then all of a sudden stuff comes out on Twitter, and other people were reporting like, oh my God, it's not a slam dunk that Zach LaVine's gonna re-sign with the Bulls anymore. Like, and then you hear like Atlanta, you got the Lakers that want to trade Westbrook and get him, and other teams want to get him, and it's very obvious why they want him, right? He's one of the top 3 free agents on the market this offseason. And I mean, who wouldn't want Zach LaVine, right? And people that don't think he's worth a max, he's absolutely worth a max. And we're looking at easily one of the best scorers in the NBA available right now. First time he's hitting unrestricted free agency, so you never know, right? But as you can see here, Jake Fisher has sources believing that he's going to resign. Now, I told people, like, once people started freaking out after the press conference at the end of the season, I'm like, look, this is just stuff that he had to say, because this is what Clutch Sports told him. Like, it did not sound like Zach LaVine during that press conference at all. It sounded like Clutch Sports basically made him say some stuff. And also, this is just to make sure that Jerry Reinsdorf, the owner of the Chicago Bulls, unfortunately, actually is willing to pay. Because we've seen before that this Bulls team, also the owner, is not willing to pay some players, and then they get traded or they don't, stay with this Bulls team. Zach was making sure that if he's going to come back here, he's getting paid max money. And, I have all the reason to believe that he will be back. Obviously, nothing is set in stone until he signs that contract, and this is officially over. Free agency opens on June 30th, so we might get something immediately. I'm kind of shocked that this says that he's expected to sign immediately, because, I mean, obviously he's already talking with other teams. That's tampering happens all the time. But I would think that he would probably take a few more days than, instead of just signing immediately right off the bat. But, I mean, it'd be great if he does. But, in my opinion, and I said this in previous videos, like, first off, Chicago's always now in a winning situation, so there's that, right? 2, you get paid a lot more in money, $55+ million from if you sign with the Chicago Bulls, and having that 5th year guaranteed is huge. And whether it's a player option or whatever, it's just, that is huge for a lot of players. Also just more money, right? But also, if you're in the city of Chicago, you get a lot more sponsorship opportunities. This is a big city, a big basketball city, a big sports town, right? So as you see, Zach's releasing all these, commercials for all these different brands right now. So there's a lot more money to be made off the court. And if he's on a team that ends up winning it all, I mean, you're looking at a dude that was on his Bulls team for such a long time and then wins it, then you're basically the hero, right? And the other teams, if he were to go to other teams, first off, the teams that could sign him outright, they're not winning. Pistons, Spurs, etc., right? And if he would go to a championship contender, or a contending team, I shouldn't say championship contender, just a team that's looking to win now, it would have to be via sign and trade, and that means giving up assets just to get him there, and that makes that team worse. So, in my opinion, it just makes sense. Just re-sign with the Bulls, you get the most money on and off the court, right? I really thought that it would be pretty simple. And this whole argument of the whole, number one playmaker, number one scorer, whatever, I don't think he actually really looks at that, but he does look at, will I be a part of the core? And I think, in a lot of situations he will be, but for the Bulls specifically, he's been kind of talked to with the front office as they're building around him. So that's another reason why to stay with Chicago. As you can see here, it's now expected that he resigns, so everybody can stop freaking out. If you're an anti-maxer, please stop. I don't want to hear it. I'm hearing a lot of BS arguments from the anti-maxers for Zach, but he's in a max contract. It's plain and simple. Even if you don't want him to be the guy on this Bulls team, you still want him to sign this max contract. It's that simple. There is no good argument to be made if you don't want him on this team. If you don't want him on this team, and you're telling me that the Bulls shouldn't sign to a max contract, you're really dumb. Because even if you don't want him on this team, and you can still trade him 2 years later, people are like, oh, he's gonna regress or whatever. Every contract is tradable. This is not a supermax. This is a max contract. It's not a supermax. We saw Russell Westbrook get traded. It's tradable. So let's all calm down about that. This is a very tradable contract once he signs it, if you think that Zach is not going to be the guy. But I think he's personally going to be a part of this core for a very long time. So I'm happy he's back, and it keeps Chicago moving in the right direction. So to move in that right direction, let's talk about this other stuff that's been coming out, which is namely the Rudy Gobert stuff. Now, Atlanta's been rumored to like him as well, which that trade doesn't make too much sense to me. But obviously, a lot of Bulls fans and other people reporting, they're like, "Oh, Rudy Gobert, Chicago makes a lot of sense, right?" And I get it, because Vucevic definitely didn't have that best of a season. Now, if you kind of look at his numbers, he actually looked pretty good. But it is true, the Chicago Bulls defense was pretty bad, especially after Caruso and Lonzo went out, and their defense was on the perimeter mostly. And unfortunately, when you look at attrition, that's just not gonna be trustworthy throughout the entire season. It's just not gonna hold up. Also, when your best defenders, namely Lonzo and Caruso, also miss a lot of time, that's not a good look either. So for the Bulls to build around DeMar and Zach, who are going to be your two guys, really leading the offensive end, you need to bring in the defensive guys. So a guy like Rudy Gobert is someone that a lot of people are looking at. Multiple-time Defensive Player of the Year. You trade offense for defense, because Vucevic is more offensive-sided, and then you trade him for defense. And it makes a lot of sense. But I'll say this, because a lot of people are kind of looking at okay, we'll throw in, obviously, Vucevic and Coby White. And that makes total sense to me. Obviously, some picks, because it's Rudy Gobert. But people are talking about Patrick Williams, and I'll quickly just say this. I have a problem throwing in Patrick Williams in a Rudy Gobert trade. Now, if you told me that Vucevic, Coby White, the 18th overall pick, the Portland Trailblazers pick, and whatever else to make salaries match for Gobert, I'm all for it. I think that really raises this floor for the Chicago Bulls and really puts them in contention level. But my problem is this. I don't think that makes them full out one of the favorites, or one having a really good chance of being a contender. That kind of puts you in the territory of well, you might make it to the conference finals, but we don't know. I want to be, if you're going to trade for Rudy Gobert, I want to be this is a team that I am picking to go to win the Eastern Conference. And unfortunately, just trading for Gobert is not enough. And if you throw Patrick Williams into that trade, that is basically putting all your trade pieces into one player that still doesn't get you up to that real contention level, right? And that's my problem. Because if you're going to trade for Gobert, that can't be your last move. And if you're going to make another move, I think Patrick Williams is the guy to then move. Or, Patrick Williams then develops into the guy that we all want him to. And then, the Bulls move up to the next level. But that's my problem with this whole idea of throwing in Patrick Williams. And again, it's not to say that I want to keep Patrick Williams. Like, I'm all for trading Patrick Williams if the front office wants to trade him, but I would not trade him in the Rudy Gobert trade if that means that we have to throw in all of our other trade pieces into that trade as well, because then you don't have any other trade pieces to get yourself better, and you're stuck at below contention level. So that's my biggest problem with the idea of throwing in Patrick Williams, because it looks like, the Vucevic, Coby White is kind of set in stone if you're going to trade for Gobert. But that's just my opinion. Again, I don't want to just hold on to Patrick Williams. I'm all for trading him, but I honestly think if you're going to trade him, you can get a really good player in return, and not have to throw that in, not throw him in the Rudy Gobert trade, if that makes sense. So that's just my opinion on it. I'm all for Rudy Gobert, but just not throwing in Patrick Williams in that deal. Obviously, more teams have more to offer. Other teams have more to offer. So, I don't think that's going to happen. That's just my guess, but who knows? Speaking of that, though, it's been reported that the Bulls are discussing this. The 18th overall pick and Coby White, they're shopping it around. And this obviously makes sense because the Bulls are a win-now team. And we've seen from AK that he's very willing to trade picks. Coby White seems like a guy that is definitely tradable, especially to like a rebuilding team. One is that he's young, but number two, he's up for extension. And the Bulls don't want to pay extension for Coby White. So I won't be shocked to see Coby White move before this season. In my opinion, I think it's actually best because you already have a logjam at the guard position, especially if Zach resigns. And to get most value for him, you want to trade him in the offseason. And I'll get to that in a little bit here. But I will say this about the 18th overall pick, because there's a lot of people like wanting the Bulls to keep it. Like, I do think this is going to get traded, the 18th overall pick. First off, the stepping rule. I know people are talking about it, but the Bulls can trade this. We just saw with the Dallas Mavericks. They just traded the 26th overall pick when they don't have their 2023 overall pick or 2023 pick. So the Bulls can still trade this. Like, I don't understand why there's so much confusion about it. The Bulls just have to make the pick. Then they can trade that player, right? So I do expect this to be traded. I also expect Karnisovas to make a draft pick, though, which means that even if this pick is traded, I do expect Karnisovas to probably get like a second-round pick up some talent that fell to the second round already now player, like how Io kind of dropped to them last season. I think that makes a lot of sense. So I personally think even if the 18th overall pick is traded, Karnisovas is going to make a pick. I really do believe that, because this is definitely a deep draft, but maybe there isn't somebody that the front office like absolutely just loves at 18, or doesn't want to have it to work with a project right now when they're in win now mode, right? But maybe instead you can trade that pick plus Coby White, get a good player in return, and also then get a second round pick. Then you use that pick to pick a ready now player that can help us win this season. I'm all for it, and I actually think that's going to happen. So my money is that the 18th overall pick will get traded, but the Bulls will still make a draft pick this draft. So be paying attention to that, especially for the second round, because we know that AK can pick up talent in the second round. That is my guess, and I won't be shocked to see either the 18th pick or Coby White traded for a veteran win-now player for the Bulls, specifically at the wing position and three-point shooting and defense. That's my guess. So that's my guess for that. And last but not least in these rumors, it's kind of interesting, but the Bulls have been rumored to actually be interested. I don't know how to say his first name, but Micic, I hope I'm saying that right. He's a point guard. He's 28. Obviously, EuroLeague MVP is kind of what people are looking at here. But the Bulls were actually rumored to want him last season. So that's something to keep in mind. So it looks like he's been on the Bulls' radar for at least a season. But people are kind of wondering, like, why would we want this? Because he's a point guard. But I will tell you this, I'm very concerned about Lonzo Ball. Like, I don't know about you guys, but I think Lonzo Ball's knee is very much a concern. Even if he is healthy to start the season, he's going to miss time. So the Bulls need to definitely add depth to that point guard position. Io did a good job filling in, but he's also a guy that has to play the two guard on our team. So, Caruso is a guy that's going to miss games because he falls to the floor a lot and gets hit a lot. So for this Bulls team to, keep that point guard position alive, they need to add depth. So I'm not shocked to see that the Bulls are interested in this at all. And I won't be mad if the Bulls end up going and getting him or getting another point guard to have for the season because I don't think Lonzo's going to be ready to start the season. I am very concerned about his knee. People are concerned about Zach's knee. I'm more concerned about Lonzo's knee, man. I'm very concerned about him. So just keep that in mind for the Bulls. Let's talk about a couple of things I'm seeing on Twitter here because I want to make it very clear to people that there is some stuff being said on Twitter that is not true. And also, I want to kind of, for some other, Bulls accounts that are followed a lot, I'm going to kind of reply to some of their tweets. So first off is this, Arturus fan club, Ross, kind of love him. Also, I don't really think he knows everything because I had to correct him on one of his videos when it came to salary cap moves. But, he's talking about Coby White and him saying, like, we can't just trade the 18th overall pick and Coby White just to make a trade and get him off the roster. And I completely agree with that statement, but this statement right here, this is the part that bothered me. Coby White is going to be a restricted free agent this next offseason. So this is his last year of his deal. He wants to get paid. If the Bulls wait until the trade deadline to trade him, then that team that is trading for him is basically getting a 2-month rental of Coby White. And then, who knows? Like, he is a restricted free agent. They'll have his bird rights. And obviously, they'll have every chance to keep him because he's a restricted free agent, but they also have to pay him. Why would a team want to give up assets and have to also pay him when it's not even, like, when they can just go out in the offseason and basically bid on him and the Bulls will probably not match? Like, there's no reason to give up assets at the trade deadline. So, Coby White's value, in my opinion, is at the highest right now. Trade him now if you're going to trade him. I disagree with the idea of trading him at the trade deadline. I think that's a horrible idea. I think he's going to have much less value at that time. And again, why would a team trade him when they can go after him in free agency? It just doesn't make sense. So that's just my opinion on that. Last but not least is this. I want Bulls fans to keep this in mind. I'm going to leave you guys off with this. When it comes to the offseason moves, there's a lot to keep in mind. First off, the sign and trades that people are throwing out, a lot of them are unrealistic. You're forgetting about base year compensation. You're forgetting about all these other trade rules. You're not matching salaries. Keep that in mind when it comes to that type of stuff. But number two is this. Keep this in mind. Now, something that is not listed on here is called the hard cap. Now, people don't think there's a hard cap in the NBA. There is a hard cap in the NBA, but it's only triggered in certain situations. Obviously, the salary cap is very much a soft cap. We saw the Bulls go over the salary cap this season. The Warriors have $178 million payroll. Like, you can go way over the salary cap. It's a soft cap. But there is something called a hard cap. So this upcoming season, the salary cap's at $122 million, which is a $10 million increase from this season, which is good, as you can see right here. The luxury tax threshold right here is at $149 million, which is a lot higher than this season, obviously, right? Which is, again, good. This is good for the Bulls. But there is something called a luxury tax apron, or a tax apron, as most people refer it to. That tax apron is basically a hard cap, and a hard cap gets triggered in certain situations. One of those situations is if you make a sign and trade. If you make a sign and trade, a hard cap is set, and that means that once that sign and trade happens, you cannot go past this salary cap figure, which is this season it was at $143 million. As you can see, the luxury tax line is $136. So I just add $6 million. I don't know what it's going to be this upcoming season, but this season the tax apron is at $143. The Bulls could not go past $143 million in salary because they were hard capped this season due to multiple things. One, they made sign-in trades, and they also used the mid-level exception. So another thing that triggers a hard cap is a mid-level exception. Now, it's specifically the non-taxpayer mid-level exception, or if you use a mid-level exception that is more than the taxpayer mid-level exception. I know this is a lot of stuff I'm throwing at you, but just keep this in mind. This is stuff to keep in mind. So when you say stuff like, hey, the Bulls can do this and then also do this, keep in mind about the hard cap. If you're going to say the Bulls can make a sign and trade, then also have to re-sign LaVine and then do all this other stuff, you have to keep in mind the hard cap, okay? I just want to keep this in mind because I'm seeing a bunch of stuff that is just fake, just not real on Twitter. And I'm going to show you a account that is saying stuff that is legitimately false info. For example, this account. I've called out this account before on this channel. I've called him out on my Twitter. This account is saying that Zach LaVine, he only sees Zach LaVine either re-sign with the Bulls or sign and trading it because he says that Zach LaVine, no matter if he re-signs with the Bulls or gets a sign and trade, it's a 5-year deal no matter what. That's false. If Zach LaVine re-signs with the Bulls, he can sign this 5-year deal. But if he asks for a sign and trade, it can only be a 4-year deal. So this right here is legitimately false. This is false info. This is not right. I've called out this account many times because they've said false info so many times. So keep this in mind when you're seeing stuff like this, because this right here is literally false info, and it got 28 retweets, 459 likes, and this account has like 15K followers. This bothers me a lot. Do not trust this account. Another thing, right? Renounce TBJ and sign and trade him for a player or TPE back. If you renounce Troy Brown Jr., which his salary, his cap hold is like 15 million, by the way, then you're not going to sign and trade him, because the only way you're going to sign and trade him then is if you re-sign him to a minimum deal or the mid-level exception at that point. Why would they do that? There's no reason to do that. If you're going to renounce him, you lose your bird rights, and then there's almost no chance you sign and trade him. This wouldn't happen. If you're going to sign and trade Troy Brown Jr., you would not renounce you wouldn't renounce him, basically. So, again, just stuff to keep in mind. This account is not trustworthy. Do not trust everything you see on Twitter. Make sure you follow the right accounts, verified people. Ryan Borgia, also known as Bulls GM on Twitter, he is very, very knowledgeable on this stuff. So keep this in mind. I will be making a video on this type of stuff as well, specifically about the hard cap, sign and trade situations, etc. So keep this in mind as we keep getting rumors, right? Because this is stuff that you have to make sure you get right when it comes to this stuff. Now, you should trust the Bulls front office when it comes to this type of stuff. Not only is AK Mark Eversley trustworthy, but they also have JJ Paul, who's the assistant GM, but he's mostly known as a cap specialist. So they know what they're doing. But, you know, these accounts on Twitter, the stuff you see, like the community for the Bulls on Bleacher Report, it's problematic because a lot of stuff they throw out there is not realistic and it actually can't happen. So stuff like this, you know, don't trust it, right? Make sure it's actually doable. So that's all I have for you guys in this video. Hope you guys enjoyed. I apologize, it went a little bit longer than I wanted to, but I'm excited, man. The next couple of weeks for the Bulls is going to be nuts. Draft day is a few days away. Obviously, then free agency starts on June 30th, and then everything's going to go crazy, right? So I'm looking forward to it. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you did, make sure you hit that like button. If you're new to the channel, hit that subscribe button. I'm hoping for a great offseason. Hope you guys are as well. I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.